Thank you, everyone, for coming to our Mooncats Monday on a Tuesday. So, first thing to talk about is the news for today, which is going to have a whole bunch of parts to it, and we will dive right in. So, acquisition conversations is sort of the thing that's been on the top of everybody's minds. Um, we have had several interested parties who were willing to take on Mooncats. However, they were not also willing to take on the existing obligations inside of the Mooncats ecosystem. Um, this is in part because one of our ongoing Mooncats partners has had changing sentiments and requirements. This is someone who is not part of Ponderware and separate from Ponderware's collaborations. Um, the bottom line is the income for Mooncats has only been a few $1,000s per month for 2022, and this is not a salary for even one-time employee before considering structure costs. And in fact, this may go down in the future as marketplaces elect not to pay secondary fees. We know that some of the marketplaces that were proposing this has sort of drawn back from this statement, but now that sort of Pandora's box has been opened, we don't know if or when this might actually take place. Um, Obviously, as we have all noted, the market has drastically changed in the last 8 months. And we are willing to own our mistakes in part of these conversations. But sort of the bottom line is secondary sales in their current setup are not a viable funding avenue, in part because a portion of secondary sales leaves the Mooncats ecosystem. We are definitely looking at other styles of fundraising, such as a Kickstarter or a Patreon style funding, but those are ideas that are not firm yet, and um, those sort of conversations are still ongoing. So I know this has come up in sort of the conversations in NFT land as a whole, as well as inside of the Mooncats ecosystem, which is CC0 or Creative Commons. And for those who are not familiar, CC0 basically means no one owns works. Or alternatively, everyone owns a works. Um, CC0 is really handy for those who want to create within the works that would otherwise have restrictions. For example, now that moonbirds are CC0, anyone can use a moonbird on a clothing line, create derivatives, other sorts of things. And if you'll uh, if you've been around inside of the Mooncats ecosystem, you probably noticed that these are all things you can already do now with Mooncats that you own. So in thinking about it, the team sort of feels like the only thing CC0 would permit is people who do not own Mooncats could legally use them in a variety of ways. Is that something that appeals to the community? Um, there hasn't been a lot of indications so far, but as with all things, we are always taking feedback and know that sometimes sentiment on these things changes. And so, if this is something that you feel would be really strong for the Mooncats, um, we are open to feedback. So, we want to talk a little bit about historical project parallels. Ponderware as a team was trying a sort of novel model that was different from other historical projects. Um, we saw sort of passive management and really active management from community members, from original dev teams, from a mix of both. Mooncat sort of sat in the middle. Um, Now we're going to move to a slightly more low touch mode. The video series that we have been talking about. The first video in this educational series is nearing completion. We've been working the last couple of weeks on sort of the last touches, which is things like ensuring the music fits the vibe, voice acting tweaks to make sure that words are pronounced the correct way, things like that. Um, And for those of you who haven't been around for some of those conversations, the video series will cover the history of the project, where it has been, and where it's going. Mooncats is always going to be more complex than a modern NFT, where you just look at a singular chart from 1 to 10,000, and that's how rare the item is, and you could see that visually. But we definitely want to break down some of the barriers for introduction into the Mooncat ecosystem. So, Midnight will be watching for impacts of the video in terms of marketing and deciding on further spends based on this. So, if you find the video helpful when it comes out, if you feel like it's a good representation of the Mooncat community, please share it. Just need to take a quick drink. All right, so moving on to marketing. If there is money someday in the future, we will consider traditional Web3 marketing. Although, honestly, the feedback that we have gotten from the community is that, shilling and temporary pumps are not good long term building. Um, and the one thing that I want to talk about again, and this is going to come up again and again, so um, if you've heard this before, thank you for being patient. Um, the benefits of being a larger collection is we are a more distributed collection. The acclimated wrapper alone has higher uh, number of unique wallet owners than most modern projects. Um, and we do want to impress upon people it is more important than ever to convert your Mooncats to the official collection, because that is how the project accrues funding. If you know someone that still has a Mooncat in the unofficial wrapper, definitely encourage them to convert over. If you know someone that's still holding Mooncats in their original ERC20 form, encourage them to moon over. Um, Despite sometimes low community participation, we are at an all-time high for holders. So people are interested in Mooncats. That's it. That's the slide. And you are going to hear a lot of this messaging over and over again. So hopefully you're not tired of it yet. All right. So with all of that in the books, what's next? As we've talked about and foreshadowed, Ponderware and Mooncats will be separating into two distinct companies. Ponderware is continuing with their current ongoing obligations, including the Starcade and Condomini. The Mooncats IP moving forward will be primarily owned by Midnight Lightning and me. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I have good conviction in Mooncats. I think it is an awesome project. I think it has a lot of potential. So I'm here. Um, Mooncats may continue working with the established financial partner that we have now to find revenue streams or purchasing partner. And for the moment, secondary sales will be committed to infrastructure. That's things like the website, the API, maintaining our unique Discord um, identifier. Um, we have been and will be through the month reviewing all costs again to see anywhere that we can find savings for the long term. And development on Mooncats will continue. This will not be anybody's full time job. The project will kind of slide into that more low touch passion project rather than being primary employment for people that stay with the project. If you are a builder and passionate about volunteering your time or expertise inside the Mooncat ecosystem, reach out to Midnight Lightning or myself. All right, next, obviously, there's the hanging question of what changes for all of you as Mooncat owners. Honestly, nothing right now. We are still going to be full time through September, and we are going to continue building even after that. If that changes, we will have a lot of messaging around that. And since it came up over the weekend, we will have a statement regarding proof of work versus proof of chain Mooncats in the future. I suspect most of you know where that's going to go. The big impact after September is there will be fewer staff and they will be around a little less frequently. Some activities will be consolidated or just happening not quite as often. The other change that we're going to be making is some parts of the MoonCat Rescue will become open source. The biggie one that we plan on converting this month will be the website. And if you are, again, a builder and passionate about volunteering to continue supporting Mooncats, reach out to one of us and we will be happy to have a conversation. And in terms of partnerships, where possible, we will continue current and upcoming partnerships. Staff roles is the next biggie. Some existing Mooncats and Ponderware staff will continue as volunteers. So, as I've noted, myself and Midnight Lightning have made financial commitments. We will also be investing our time. We do have some time commitments from Tusk and Jake, although they are going to be in slightly different roles. Also, this is something that we did not talk about, but we are sort of surfacing. The moratorium on Mooncats and Ponderware staff purchasing actual Mooncats has been lifted. That is actually something that we decided in March and just didn't really publicize, but it is now concluded. Communications channels. So these presentations, these sort of MoonCat Mondays, will become every other month or potentially quarterly, depending on what information that we're sharing. There will be one more MoonCat Monday this month, which will be on September 26th. This will review the project's near-term goals, and then we're going to have projected one more MoonCat Monday near the end of the year. All right, at this point, opening up to questions.
Play Nice asks, can we use MoonCatRescue logo now? Is it also CC0? We're not moving to CC0. It was just an option being tossed around the community. We have a lot of people typing, so just waiting for some questions to come in.
Also, the MoonCatRescue font is a freeware font. You're free to use it. I believe we've mentioned the name before, and it's slipping my mind exactly what it is.
It's Setback TT, and then the smaller pixelated font is called Monroe, and they're both available for free. And then our Mooncat icon itself actually has been rotating roughly every 4 months to a different Mooncat head. So there's no de facto Mooncat of the project. So far, a lot of people talking about CC0, which again, we've touched on. It's not what we're moving towards. It was just something we were touching on in the presentation. Play Nice asks, what valuation did Pause Midnight enter in at? What was this agreement like? I can't speak to that, but maybe one of them can.
I'd say, and that's the separation and the structure of that separation is still ongoing. So that's not set at the moment. And so yeah, not sure how much of that we'd or that will be available, but yeah, that's not set at the moment.
Uh, Beautiful Data asks, in terms of community builders, do you have any mini projects that you have in mind off the top of your heads that you could see people doing? And I'll start with one for not builders. We need server boosters right now. So even if you're not a builder, we could use server boosters just on our Discord. That's the low hanging fruit. And then, yeah, I'll let Pause and Brooks get into the rest.
Yeah, I think we actually do have in the remainder of this presentation, we have some more discussions about both next projects as trying to open things up to help allow any developers or technically minded people able to pick off some projects to help with. So yeah, that'll be discussed in the next couple of slides here of the presentation.
Uh, Looking down, Yuppie, if Ponderware is kind of becoming more passive in their presence, is there any avenue or mechanic for the community to implement or not implement some much discussed topics? For example, removing accessories from OpenSea. We're
So
going to get
I
into
think
that,
there's
but yeah.
yeah, so I think there's two things there that I want to address is one, we are going to talk about accessories in the second half of this presentation, but two, part of this is Ponderware is out of Mooncats. So Mooncats will become its own distinct thing. Ponderware will be its own distinct thing. And while we will still be friends, we will be two distinct legal entities. And Wonder and Jerfles won't have much of any say in terms of Mooncats, and Midnight and I won't have much in terms of say in Ponderware.
All right. I don't see anything else coming through. I think we're good to keep moving. At the end of the presentation, feel free to keep typing your questions. We'll make sure we cover them.
Cool. Um, so moving into part two and our ongoing commitments, sort of things that the community is passionate about, unanswered questions from the first half. The accessories vote. Da da da. So one thing that I think Midnight and I both agree upon is that community input is really important. Um, but also, we really feel that the options we gave for the accessories vote lacked nuance. And I know I've talked about this before, but I think it cannot be stressed enough. The feedback we have received since the vote is overwhelmingly in favor of not turning off accessories, but instead revising accessories. Sorry. Um, and the thing that attracts so many people to Mooncats, and we hear over and over again, is that owners permanently influence the story, lore, and traits of Mooncats that they own. You know, someone who rescued a Mooncat chose its traits mostly. I know there was some people that just took any Mooncat in the rush. Naming is forever, so is adding an accessory. Um, and so we've definitely been thinking about this a lot and sort of how do we proceed forward with the very disparate feelings on accessories. And we sort of looked at the common complaints, and they fall into three pretty broad buckets. The first one being it's confusing to new users that are coming to Mooncats. What is a rarity? How does the ownership of an accessory work? Is there value to an accessory? Things like that. And that is the biggest bucket. And that is the one that we feel requires the most addressing most urgently. The other complaint is there are some accessories that cover the full Mooncat. Um, in general, we don't approve things that change to a different creature. Sorry, um, the things that we don't approve are items that notably alter the expression or pattern of a Mooncat to a different pattern or expression that exists in the Mooncat ecosystem. We do approve things that change it to a different creature, and we are accepting of things that change a Mooncat's expression to something that is clearly not another Mooncat expression. For example, the Cheshire Smile or the happy sleepy eyes. The third bucket is wow, that accessory is ugly, which is the one that we feel requires the least amount of addressing. So the thing that Midnight and I sort of want to look at is if accessories are here to stay, how can we make them better? And we definitely do feel like this can be addressed without turning off accessories entirely, because accessories are a key innovation to Mooncats. And we also notice that an increasing number of projects are offering this sort of customization. If it was a bad idea, only we would have it. So, accessories revision. Um, do you want to sort of talk through this, Midnight?
Sure, I can talk to that. So one of the hats that I've been wearing over the last month or two is looking at from the development side, looking at the API server, which that's the piece of the Mooncat ecosystem that when the acclimated wrapper requests information or indicates which information a Mooncat has, what traits they have, which is the place that every tool that uses the generic ERC 721 logic looks to, it comes to a central Ponderware server, which is how we can customize it for accessories and things that change about a Mooncat. Like when we added in the ability for a Mooncat to be a spokescat on a Mooncat pop can. And so in the last month, we've been working on that. Dan has been instrumental in that. And that the plan is now before the end of the month here to update, to get a new version of the API up that gives us some more flexibility to be able to do more custom things with what is returned to different services that get requested. Um, the main thing is this idea of the accessories that are covering the entire Mooncat, as well as the idea that we have different uses for different pictures of Mooncats. We have marketplaces, we have virtual worlds, we have virtual galleries. And so being able to have, and some of those other services like virtual worlds and galleries, virtual galaxies would be fun too. Virtual galleries don't have the capability to do the full Web3 look directly at the contracts yet, that they need some sort of a stopgap Web 2 style endpoint. And so we're looking to provide more flexibility there, and are on track to have that available before the end of the month here.
Um, so as part of this updated API, we will be re-reviewing accessories this month. We definitely want people to look at an accessory ownership as permanent choice of the owner of that Mooncat, although we will be soliciting more feedback on what sticks around and what doesn't. So accessories that fully cover a Mooncat to the point where they no longer look like a Mooncat um, will be the first thing that's changing. These will be dropped into a new category called costumes. Um, they will not show up on marketplaces. They will be available via metaverses. You will still be able to search for costumes on marketplaces. Also, as a general reminder to folks, we do adhere to copyright takedown requests in terms of accessories. If, um, TPC showed up and said, hey, take down that Mew, we would do that. That's not new, it's just a reminder for people. Um, but here is sort of where we stand on the bucket 3 of wow, that accessory is ugly. Um, we are definitely looking at purse for more personalization. We are potentially looking at an adoption center style UI with and without accessories. Um,
And to clarify there, more personalization for the person who's viewing the Mooncat. Like right now, the purse interface is primarily for MoonCat owners to be able to see their own wallet of or their own litter of MoonCats available. And as we're looking for different enhancements for the purse interface, if that can grow to allow users to view it without being logged into a wallet or not to be connected with a wallet, that can grow to be a spot where if you as a user wish to say, hey, right now I want to see what the original Mooncats, what they look like, that you would have the ability to toggle off and browse the collection without their accessories, whereas still adhering to the individual owner's personalization options when they have chosen to have their Mooncat be accessorized.
but we also want everybody to understand that aesthetic curation would be both incredibly time consuming and honestly kind of impossible because there are accessories that people in August were like, wow, X accessory is ugly. And yet, when it first came out on the boutique, it was super popular, got a lot of positive conversation, it sold out, things like that. So, what feedback we need from community members? Do you want to talk about this one, Midnight?
Sure. Um, so yeah, I think we have been as a Ponderware team, we've been using the OpenSea collection as or the OpenSea interface pointing to the Mooncat collection as kind of the default go-to uh, link for people interested to go browse from a marketplace perspective. In recent months, there's been many more marketplaces pop up, as well as a new breed of sort of just viewers of NFTs, sort of gallery views, as well as services like Gem or Genie, which are sort of aggregators across multiple marketplaces. And each of them show the collections in slightly different ways. I've seen some of the feedback was on for example, on OpenSea, when you're looking at an individual Mooncat and you're looking at a particular trait of an individual Mooncat, OpenSea adds a percentage and they indicate how many out of the entire collection have that particular trait. That's an example of something that's a choice of OpenSea's in how they manage their UI. We as project owners have zero influence over how OpenSea decides on that part of the interface. Through the API server, we can decide whether a Mooncat has the trait, but that sort of rarity percentage is part of OpenSea's choice of how they show their UI. And some of these other marketplaces might show things differently. And so if there are ways of viewing the collection, and this is actually as part of some of the collaborations that we've been working with of looking at different teams that are showing gallery and collection views in slightly different ways is something we're evaluating. Um, if you feel that the OpenSea portrayal of those traits is unclear, and you think there is a different group that is already doing it well, that perhaps we can switch over to just by default recommending new users go to a different place that is more clear on how it is laying out the collection. That would be good to let us know. Also, if it's a matter of, oh, this feature from over there and this feature from over there and this feature from over there look very good, as we continue to refine the internal tools within the Mooncat ecosystem, specifically the purse view, that feedback would be very valuable to know how people would like to view the Mooncats directly within the Mooncat specific viewing tools.
And since I know that this is going to be an immediate request or suggestion of why not do a custom marketplace. At the moment, a custom marketplace is not financially or logistically feasible. Um, there is an open source marketplace that we have looked into. The challenge is we don't have a good place to slot it into the schedule. And we have looked at pricing out someone else doing a marketplace for us. At the moment, that is completely prohibitively financially because the offers that we're getting are either wildly expensive or won't fit in with the way that our finances are structured currently. I think the best offer that we got was half of the royalties for the next 2 years. Um, and yeah, that just isn't going to work with the way things are set up right now. So, jumping back to the MoonCats API, um, the Ponderware team is committed to helping MoonCats finish the API or get as close to the finish line as possible in September. Midnight has a lot of these ideas, um, largely collected through community feedback that I have brought to him and the Ponderware team. If there is something that you feel is most urgent, um, definitely lay that down for us. Feedback is really important. So the new API is planned to go live this month. One of the things that is going to be part of this API that we haven't talked about a lot is the enhanced loot prints for Mooncats data availability. And do you want to sort of dive into that a little bit, Midnight?
Sure. That was, as I mentioned, um, that there are some ecosystems, some projects that are being built to try and interact with NFTs, but they're being built in a more Web 2.0 manner. The Loot Prints collection was created as a fully on chain data set from the beginning. And so the metadata, which has the traits for each loot print, have always been available from the contracts directly. However, if there was a project that wished to interact with loot prints, but they weren't set up to have the infrastructure to directly look up data on the Ethereum blockchain, they wouldn't be able to get at that data. So this enhancement will add the ability to see loot print data off of our hosted API server. So projects that are wishing to use that wish to use loot prints and look up information about them could do so through a Web 2.0 infrastructure, which again might help them get some sort of an interaction going as a stopgap before more things start to convert over to a Web3 sort of interface.
The API will also have more ways to pull in Mooncats information. Um, so some of the things that we're planning on doing with this enhanced API is a major photo booth update um, with a feature that we have kind of been hinting at and want to continue percolating on through the month is basically sticker ready versions of Mooncats. Um, the updated API will also have things like the ability to remove background accessories. Foreground only options are a frequent request of metaverses, particularly World Wide Web. Another thing that we're going to be adding is head only rendering for PFPs. This will be both with and without head relevant accessories. And thank you to the community members who suggested this. This is something that we have been sort of percolating on in the background quietly, but know that this is a result of the feedback we got from all of you. And lastly, in terms of the API, if there is a place where you feel accessories are beneficial, now is the time to let us know. And if you can help us get connected to those projects, that would also be super duper helpful.
Mhm.
Um, the two that immediately sprung to mind of places where accessories shine the brightest, but we do not have good connections to, is on Cyber and Decentraland. So if you can introduce Midnight and myself to people on those teams, that would be an easy way to help us continue building. No programming knowledge needed. All right, next thing to talk about, the MoonCat Pop project. We will consider future machines no earlier than next year, but that is largely because we are in some conversations about MoonCat Pop being a preferred drop on an alternative platform rather than the current pop.mooncatrescue.com site. The MoonCat name service, as opposed to Ethereum name service. This is probably a retread for quite a few of you listening to this, but in case it isn't, all Mooncats have a free domain attached to their MoonCat ID. That is both their Mint ID and their hex. As MoonCat names are not unique, it is not attached to your MoonCat name. This will continue for the seeable future. The domain is registered through June 2023. And again, in a way to help us uplift ways that people can help the project without being a programmer, a domain's registration can be extended by anyone. And we encourage anyone who hasn't activated their MCNS and who isn't using it somewhere, just using your MoonCat name service helps us promote the project. It is free, fast, simple assistance with marketing. I'm going to pause briefly and ask if people have questions about the tools from the project so far.
And I've been watching the MoonCat Monday channel and general channel. Reminder, just keep it centralized in MoonCat Monday if you actually want your comment talked about or asked. I'm not broadcasting the stuff from general. Don't see any questions yet, but Mooncat Maxi says, really enjoy the focus on viewing cats. I do a lot of that myself. I'm in favor of any tools like MoonCat Pro and the OG Adoption Center. Showing accessories. Hoofhearted asks, just to clarify, Ponderware will help with the continued dev launch of GravBall or no?
That's when we'll talk about GravBall and the jump port is some future slides, so we'll probably touch on that here in a moment.
You front ran us by about 10 minutes, Hoofhearted.
It does reassure me, though, that I made slides for things that people are most invested in hearing about. So thank you, Hoofard. Right, moving on to partnership projects. Of course, World Wide Web is one of our most important partners. We will be continuing to have discussions with the World Wide Web team. V2 is taking a little longer than I think they had originally anticipated. Bugs happen. I know in from my own game dev experience, the last 10% of a project is 90% of the time. So, the good news and the update that I have to share is Mooncats finally seem to be consistently selectable in V2. So, yay. That is something that we've kind of been trying to follow up with them for a while. They had a whole bunch of projects that were having a very similar issue, and they seem to have it fixed for everybody. So woot woot. They also finally announced some of their API tools, and in fact, the one that is critical to us is their new one of their new API tools essentially lets us say, sorry, ignore what the MoonCat default is. Here is an accessorized version that is specific to World Wide Web. So that kind of goes back to where we were talking about ensuring that the right accessories are visible in metaverses, taking away things like the pickle backgrounds and the hot sauce backgrounds. Sorry, Tusk Dusk.
No,
Your
I'll
watermelon's
live.
gotta go. um, there is some other tools that we are still waiting to hear back from. The one that is probably most important to us is the token gated lands. Um, and they are interested in a custom MoonCat API to continue to support MoonCat accessories. We've talked a lot about them of things like being able to buy and sell even Mooncats and potentially even accessories in their ecosystem, potentially supporting Mooncat Pop. Those are all things that are still kind of on the table, and that we are going to continue to um, work with them and be strong advocates for their inclusion. But sort of the bottom line in this is we are waiting on their timeline. Um, Although Midnight continues to have technical conversations with their teams. Um, Unfortunately, because this is 99% out of our hands, um, don't expect a ton of updates from us. When we know, you'll know. And I'm sorry, I wish I could be um, much more firm with dates for World Wide Web, but
Hmm.
um, it's their
And just to,
project. Go
oh
ahead.
yeah, and just to reiterate of like it, just to show that this is a key example of like what I was saying of um, tools that are being built that are wanting to integrate with NFTs in order for them to iterate more rapidly and not mire down their own development. They're making requests like this of World Wide Web, their API tool of how to interact more in a more custom manner requires them to look at a Web 2 style API endpoint. That allows them to continue to iterate and not spend even more time customizing things for each specific collection. And so while we continue to emphasize that Mooncats being on chain, the collections of the benefits of an NFT being that there is a permanent store of the data, providing that data in many different ways, including the more traditional Web 2.0 ways, is still important, and it allows us to not be the bottleneck for these sorts of things. That we could be ready when they are to be able to show these things.
All right. Next on the list of partners is unfortunately not as rosy and positive as World Wide Web. Um, we have been trying to work with the sandbox to finalize the rewards they promised. But here's the bottom line, they suck. They're just really unorganized. We have spent the past 6 weeks emailing them, and they are constantly passing the buck around to different people within their organization. We are kind of at the point where we feel this may never be resolved. We're sorry they suck. And the bottom line is, we're planning on selling our sandbox land because we have no faith they will live up to their promises.
This was the diplomatic version of this slide, for anybody wondering.
uh, when there was much stronger language when I first wrote this slide. Yeah, we started reaching out to them. What was it? The middle of July, with a first week of September plan, and yeah, they still haven't finalized um, their own obligations. They screwed this up. They keep saying that they're willing to fix it. They haven't. and they probably won't. So, yeah. Moving on to more interesting topics. Um, Collabs in general. Um, we are sort of putting a pause on further collabs until some of the existing ones we have are cleared out of their in progress states. That being said, there will be allow list slots for condominiums that is exclusive to MoonCat owners. Really, there is a very small number of projects that will be offered these slots. MoonCats, Starcade, and that might be it. Potentially some of the other historical projects that are getting collaboration condos, but that is a Ponderware thing and not a MoonCats thing. And so that will go through sort of their channels to me. The dilemma that we're having with collabs at the moment is it feels like a lot of these projects are coming to us with big promises and then having very minimal delivery. Um, there are way too many people that are just going to cut and run with a project's profits, and we don't dig that. So now we jump into a jump port Q&A because there have been some questions around the Mooncats Discord for what would happen legally with Mooncats inside of the jump port. So the jump port is going to be a joint Mooncats and Ponderware, correct? Midnight?
Nope, sorry, I missed the missed the end of that one there.
Who owns the jump port?
Right now, it is currently owned by the Ponderware corporate address, and that for the moment will stay there. Then, as the companies separate, that'll be something that we'll need to discuss and can disclose as that happens.
So I think the sort of big question that has been asked since the last time we had a Mooncat Monday is what if Mooncats or Ponderware get a legal lien on a Mooncat in the jump port? And do you want to kind of dive into this, Midnight?
Sure. And this is one of, I mean, at the highest level, I hope this should be an extremely edge case of whether, a Mooncat asset in the jump port gets this sort of attention or gets this sort of a requirement. The main thing is both Ponderware and the intended new sort of entity for the Mooncat Rescue project. We are U.S. citizens and would be under U.S. jurisdiction, and so the intention to continue to operate as a legal entity within the US, we would comply as we could, though the only thing that we would be able to do is to trigger the potential withdrawal of an asset from the from the jump port. The fastest that can happen is 366 days. Um, it is something that anytime during those 366 days, the actual owner of that asset can withdraw it and just simply keep their asset. So yes, we would comply as we would need to as a U.S. entity. However, we have no technical way to do it in an immediate manner. And that's one where right now one of the enhancements to the Jumpport website UI that is nearing completion is a interface to be able to see all the activity that is going on, not just your own Mooncat's status within it. And so that would show things like if a withdrawal was started to be triggered, that can be monitored by people in a fairly easy manner. We be making the tools that you can be monitoring that and having the nothing up our sleeves. We're not trying to hide the fact. If that tool actually were to be used, it would be evident to everyone. But again, it could not be used immediately. That's not technically possible within the contract.
So I think the other sort of question that we tend to get is do I need to put in my Mooncat now? No, we never want you to feel pressured to use the jump port if you are unsure of how the jump port works or you're uncomfortable with the withdraw mechanic. Um, but here is the other half of that. There are some folks who have basically said in the Discord, well, I have my Mooncat in the jump port and I'm kind of scared to take it out. If you withdraw your Mooncat, your time accrued stays with your Mooncat. And that resumes when you re jump into the port. Um, I know some folks pulled out their Mooncats to take advantage of the anniversary accessories, and we definitely know that one of the things we're going to be working on sooner over later is interacting with the accessories contract while you are inside of the jump port. But overall, I think some people have asked, like, is the jump port being used in the way that the team is expected? Yes. Um, we see most owners putting in one or two of their Mooncats and keeping the rest out. And that is exactly the behavior that we had anticipated for early users of the jump port. So thank you for being along on our crazy ride. And of course, we do want to talk about Graphball. Things that are done. Do you want to jump into this, Midnight?
Sure. Um, so yeah, the reason and so having these two slides be separate of recognizing GraphBall being kind of our end goal that has been an end goal for a while, recognizing the need for the infrastructure and plumbing that goes under it. The previous slide, the jump port was a key infrastructure piece that enables contracts to trust that a Mooncat is in a specific position, basically a lockbox, as I've referred to it before. The next phase thinking that GravBall will be on an L2, both for gas convenience and to make it easier to or to be able to interact more rapidly with the contracts, is to get the information available on an L2. Um, what we have accomplished in the last week was deploying contracts onto several L2s that give Mooncat and Lootprint metadata available on chain to contracts on those chains. Um, it's something of as I've been investigating the how GravBall could or how the process of uh, a Mooncat owner could enroll a Mooncat into a GravBall game that could be done by processing or posting the information from mainnet to an L2 every time you entered your Mooncat into an event or into a game. But it would be more cost effective if those L2s just had that data about each Mooncat and about each loot print, since the core traits for each of those are now locked in place. So we've taken on the financial cost of deploying those as just a lump of data onto three chains at the moment. Optimism, Gnosis, and Matic now each have on-chain information, the same sorts of information we had created on L1 for Mooncats, and that have existed for since the inception for the loot prints on L1 now are available on those three chains as well, that any smart contract deployed to Optimism, Gnosis, or Matic can reference and get information like, what is the hexadecimal ID of Mooncat 0? Looking up by rescue index what the hex ID is, as well as the hue information or expression information. Those will be factors in how your Mooncat performs in Graphball games, so that's needed there. But again, in the spirit of the things that Ponderware and the Mooncat team do being platforms that others can use and that it doesn't need to be a closed silo. These have been deployed as open metadata tools. And as part of that, because it is a copy of data that was on L1, and it wasn't deployed using a bridge or using a specific messaging system to track across the chains, what is available now is a set of testing tools that anyone who, if they're interested in it, can basically have their system run through a check of all the Mooncats and or all the loot prints or specific sections of the collection if you're interested, to verify that all the traits on L1 match the traits on L2. Right now, the L2 metadata traits or metadata contracts do have an option to seal them or finalize them, and they are currently unfinalized with the intention that in this phase, we'd love community and other third parties to do that verification and make sure that everything appears to be set properly. We'll continue this for people who are interested. We'll have another meeting next week to do kind of a testing party together. The process of going through the entire collection is rather time consuming if you wish to go through it, since it's 25,000 individual network calls to test all of the Mooncats. But we'll be going through having a testing party next week for those who wish to learn how to do those tests on their own, and we'll do some live streams of going through at least portions of the collection as a team.
So this is sort of part of our continuing nothing up our sleeve development, so that for those of you who are not sort of developer inclined, I can program Hello World, but that is about the extent of mine. Um, this is handy for those who want to come and see what testing is like, what testing looks like. So that'll be next Monday during our usual MoonCat Monday time. We tend to and will continue to um, sort of use Central Time. We jokingly call it Cat Standard Time as our general timeline for things. When I do time calls on Discord, I do try to use Hammer Time. Hammer Time converts to your local time zone, and so that seems to be working well for everybody. Um, but sort of here's the cool part of this is any application um, will be able to pull information for Mooncats and loot prints once these functions are finalized and the contracts are sealed. So you will be able to do other cool stuff with Mooncats on L2s, even things that are not developed by the Mooncats team. So, what's next? Grav beta, woohoo! Um, the one thing that we want people to understand, and we are going to be stressing this a lot, is we are building Gravball with the directive fun over finances. Gravball will not be a tool for um, making money. It will be a game. And we want people to understand that the fun factor is going to be primary over can I make money off of this. To start, it is going to be what we kind of call the Zork style of gameplay, which will be describing the thing rather than seeing the thing. There is going to be an interface, although obviously things like artwork, animations, and readable results, they all take time and they're not going to be immediately available, but there is plans to add them.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, for like this sort of development style, which is kind of a newer style, the fact that the Ponderware team released the jump port as a cohesive unit first and is now doing the metadata contracts as another cohesive unit. This is something that is unique to the Web3 sort of space, that there can be, and indeed the blockchain structure encourages doing things in small, discrete pieces that do one job and do it well. It also allows, like, now that the jump port exists, we recognize that the people are interested in working with accessories, and indeed, we've recognized that having Mooncats in the jump port and having a portal specifically for accessories can do special things that we weren't able to do previously, like potentially have a wish list of things that you wish your Mooncat to have and allow someone else to buy it on your behalf because you wish your Mooncat owned it. Um, that can be done as a parallel development now that the jump port exists and as a discrete unit. So yes, continuing to march towards now the next phase will be working on that UI interface for GravBall, but it can also be done in parallel to creating a portal for accessories because those discrete units have already been deployed out.
Also, on accessories, I know there's probably going to be questions surrounding if we're going to make accessories a little more permeable. through the jump port and grav ball, will accessories become tradable. Um, the the current accessories are attached permanently to a Mooncat, and accessories that are available now, and this is still correct, Midnight, they will never be tradable.
Correct. The current accessories infrastructure does not allow them to be tradable. They exist at the moment they are purchased. They are the unique combination of a specific Mooncat and a specific accessory, and are not separable. They can only be modified by the owner of the Mooncat for which palette is visible, and which order they are being shown or hidden for the Mooncat.
Um, and that does not exclude the idea of a potential V2 of accessories that after that point, accessories created could be tradable. But that is not something that is something we're considering at the moment, just something that it is potentially possible in the future.
And that's
And
potentially possible in the future to do things like, yeah, if a new system were added or more logic added to, if a specific item was added to a Mooncat's purse and it ended up being visible as a visual on that Mooncat's standard display, that it kind of became an accessory. Those are sorts of things that could be explored in the future, but would be part of a new system and not part of the current accessories ecosystem. Though, of course, a website like the boutique could expand to accommodate multiple types of things um, if those became available in the future. But
cool.
again, that would
I
be a
know.
much larger undertaking to create a new system. Yeah, it would not be possible to modify the current accessory system to be tradable. That would be creating a brand new sort of project and ecosystem.
Cool. I know there's sort of been some discussion on the Discord like over the weekend and stuff, so I wanted to make sure that we address that.
Hmm.
So at this point, opening up the floor to general Q&A regarding Mooncats separating from Ponderware, Midnight becoming the new primary owner of the Mooncats IP. If you have questions about collabs and Jumpport and Gravball, floor is open for those. Just feel free to drop them into the Mooncats Monday channel. I really need to take a drink.
And Brick Router, hopefully we quickly touched on your accessories question and Mooncat Mondays there. Mooncat 10, I would be interested if there was a list of what you guys need help with, along with specific tasks. There are plenty of us to design, code, PR, social, and marketing experience. Maybe a semi-public list where people could sign up and take care of work that needed to be done. I'm fine with volunteering in order to help bridge Mooncats to greener pastures. So
Yes,
basically, a to-do
and
list.
yeah, and that is actually something that Midnight and I were talking about kind of the end of last week and the start of this week, where there is going to be a list like that. There is kind of going to be a method of sign up, but how those details are going to work is still something that we are squishing through, and it will depend upon what all gets done through September. Both Ponderware and Mooncats team are working full time through September to make the transition as painless as possible to get done as much as possible before the official separation of the two companies. And so, the list is coming,
Hmm.
reliant upon what we all get done in the
Yep.
next 3 weeks.
And I can say from we mentioned a few options already in the slide presentation here of, especially on the social side, like there are lots of you who own Mooncats, and being active on social media, um, and in the sense of being active, not even needing to post yourself, but simply liking other people's Mooncat related posts, is very helpful. Helps the algorithm deter give us some more weight. If there's more um, views and impressions on tweets that are about people being excited to join the collection, that generally has a snowballing effect. From the code side, I'll go into it more, especially with the the coding or the testing party next week. But the structure right now is I will be setting up a group on, or it already exists, a group on the GitLab hosting site, and using the traditional Git structures of having issues, quote unquote, for feature requests and pull requests. The idea of having more of, once that the code pieces start to move over there in a more public fashion, I'll be a key maintainer who can merge the code in. But yes, pull requests, which on the GitLab interface are termed merge requests instead of pull requests, would be a great way to assist. And I'll be intending to put through or to organize some issues into easy ones that junior developers could pick off, or people first getting familiar with the code base, as well as creating it easy environments for developers to create Mooncat specific development environments that if they're participating in things like hackathons, that they could easily spin up an environment, help fix a bug, and submit it in short timeframes. So yeah, the code side will likely be through issues and pull requests on GitLab, as is traditional for sort of open source projects, and the social media ones will be coming up with more shortly.
And a quick shout out to Vex, who, while we were all talking, actually re-upped ismymooncat.eth for another year. So thanks.
Excellent. Thank you.
We'll give people time to type here. And a reminder, I am going through and reading general, and I'm assuming you don't want your comments in general read unless you drop them into our Mooncats Monday channel. So ask questions there, please. Old Tech wants to know, where will that Git stuff be posted?
I can drop that link now because it'll also be part of the testing initiative. If people want to start looking at it there, I'll drop that just straight into the Mooncat Mondays one. It is GitLab MoonCatRescue is the group that has started there.
And for anybody that missed that, we will have a live event in a week, a little less than a week actually, on a Monday, where you'll kind of be able to work through some of the upcoming Mooncats code. So that will be fun. Don't miss that. Digi says hi, and he loves and misses us all. Hi, Digi. We love and miss you too.
Hi, Digi.
Vex, this is sort of unrelated, but in his important, or their important, in their opinion, an important question. What do you think a community effort to back up every Mooncat contract ABI on chain through IDMs? So, sorry, let me reread that. I think I screwed that up. What do you think about a community effort to back up every Mooncat contract ABI on chain through IDMs?
I think that's one. IDMs is an acronym I hadn't heard of previously, but the idea of moving or having a backup of ABIs on chain sounds like it would be a great community initiative to work towards. And yeah, something that I could help with describing the tech if that's needed for people who, if that becomes, or if that is a piece that speaks to you as a passion for how to help preserve this into the future, yes, that would be a good thing to do.
And for my non-tech question, that would be different from the information we have on chain already?
Correct. The ABI, application binary interface, is the fancy way of saying a list of functions that a contract has. Um, Sites like Etherscan, when they scan the source code of smart contracts that are submitted, they automatically peel out what they know to be the names of all the functions that are public on that source code, and that's how Etherscan makes the sort of interface to interact with a smart contract. If you are creating a tool separately that you wish to interact with a contract, you need to know the list of public functions it has. And that list of public functions is generally not on chain specifically, but is passed around and provided for each contract. And so that
Ooh.
logic is, it's kind of the, if you imagine the same sort of tech stack between you and the internet, you've got your network card and you've got the firmware on the network card and you've got the physical cable plugged into your network card. um, it's getting like one of those additional glue layers on chain, whereas we've got the core bulk of it on chain, and this is one more, making it more human friendly, one of the more human friendly parts to the on chain data.
Okay, yeah, that does sound really cool.
Uh, Kylex, apologies if I mispronounced, asked, "Do we still own the IP for our Mooncats?" And
Yes.
yes, you still own
Yeah.
full commercial and
So
non-commercial rights.
whether it is Ponderware or MoonCatRescue, the MoonCat license is still in effect. You still own commercial and non-commercial rights to the Mooncats that you own. Um, the one thing in terms of IP rights that is changing is the sort of air quote right to use the collection as a whole in pursuance of marketing will shift from Ponderware to Mooncats. Unless
Mooncats
there's something else
as a
that I
new
yes, as a
like
new
company
company
LLC, not
entity.
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So your rights as a Mooncat owner don't change. Sort of the big thing. It would be like a mega store changing the sign outside from Kmart to Shoppers Drug Mart. Wait, no, those are both Canadian things. It would be like changing a pharmacy from CSV to Walgreens. The sign has changed. The insides still work the same. Painfully Canadian.
Kmart was my first job ever, so painful memories. Thanks, thanks.
I'm sorry.
Old Tech asks, "Do you all do freelance dev work?" And I'm assuming that's a kind of you all broad gesture to the team right now, including Ponderware
Um,
Mooncats.
so Ponderware does do smart contract development for other companies. That has been the thing that has been keeping both Ponderware and Mooncats afloat for this year. Just because the royalties on Mooncats alone do not pay for the staff. If you are talking about what will happen when Mooncats becomes its own thing and Ponderware is a distinct company and Mooncats are a distinct company, um, we will all find jobs elsewhere.
Yep, a lot changing in the background here. And then if you're ever interested, you can just check out ponderware.com. That's where you can get some info on their freelance work. So I don't see anything else coming in. We can give one last shout out here for anybody that wants a burning question answered live. Now is your chance. There's been a lot covered here, so understand that people are still kind of thinking over everything.
And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are going to have sort of a wrap up event at the end of the month to ensure everybody understands um, what Mooncats are going to be moving forward. Um, so, Mooncat Zero is owned jointly by Wonder Wonder and Jerfles. The ownership of Zero won't change. They will continue licensing the use of Mooncat Zero to the new Mooncats entity. Um, if for no other reason than there's not a compelling reason not for them to do so.
Unless somebody wants to quickly buy it for 1337 ETH. Vex is going to extend ENS and then quickly offload 0. So cool. Nothing like a hard day's work, Vex. Thanks.
And I mean, I think Vex just kind of expanding the MoonCat name service for another year is sort of a really good example of how individuals inside of the community can have a big impact on the project. You know, we are always looking for these sort of superheroes, and I think that despite potentially what some people look at as doom and gloom, there will be tons of opportunities for community members to contribute in truly meaningful ways to the Mooncats ecosystem.
Yeah, and I guess to reiterate there of as it has been a passion project for me for years, and it will continue to be. And that's where, for any community members where you're interested in playing with your Mooncats, of this is an interesting passion of yours and you want to see more things grow from it. um, the intriguing thing to me about the blockchain space and the NFT space is every asset that can be a digital collectible on the chain is essentially a growable lifetime membership to the things that continue to grow. And so, yeah, if it's interesting to you to continue to grow what they can represent, yeah, we're happy to help facilitate that. And again, an emphasis on, because the Mooncat collection is larger than the quote standard or de facto what became, the 2021 era of NFT collections, we have more people. And so if you are interested in being active and doing things, yep, we'd love to help facilitate those continued conversations.
And now that the moratorium on buying Mooncats from the MoonCatRescue staff is lifted, I'm totally going to go buy 2017. I'm invested.
Yeah, side note, we've all
Invested
just been
emotionally and
watching,
financially now.
champing at
All
the
the
bit,
Mooncats.
frothy. I definitely have a few more cat colors I want.
All right. I think that is going to wrap up our presentation today. But thank you, everybody, for coming. If you have other questions that you want to discuss with Midnight and I, definitely reach out to me and we will have those conversations. So thank you, everybody, as always, for attending. We do appreciate when you make time out of your day to come and spend time with us. And we will be talking again soon.
Thank you all.